Right, welcome back to another episode with Tinny Traveller. Today's going to be something a bit different. We've just had Cyclone Alfred roll through, and before that we had some very strong southeasterly winds leading up to it. So I haven't been out fishing for actually quite a while. So today we're going to do a bit of a discussion, a bit of a tackle talk on how to go about tackling fishing my local Moreton Bay after after a big rain event, or after Cyclone Alfred. Before we get too much into it, I'd like to say my local area, Redmond Bay, was hit pretty hard, and for any of you watching the episode from this area, my best wishes goes out to you. I hope you're back on your feet and recovering from the cyclone now. To those people who aren't yet, I hope you guys get back recovered pretty quickly. Some people only just got power back just yesterday, today. So that would have been very challenging for people in those areas. We only lost power for 3 days, which wasn't too bad, but other people have been out with 7 days or more. So I hope you guys are getting back on your feet, and best wishes to you guys to recover pretty quickly. Alright, let's get into it, shall we? So I guess to start off with, we better talk about what can we actually catch, because with the amount of fresh water rain we got, and the amount of runoff we're going to get in the next couple of weeks flowing into Moreton Bay, it is going to restrict the fish that you can catch. It's not all species are going to be available during this time to catch them. So I'd particularly be targeting snapper, squire, and maybe in 2 to 3 weeks, when there's a bit more salt water getting pushed into the bay, hopefully the tuna will come in and be feeding on all the bait that's been washed out of the rivers from the rain and flooding events. So that's what I'd be targeting. Yeah, but for the meantime, for the next 1 to 2 weeks, it'll definitely be snapper and squire that I'll be focusing my efforts on. So during these times, you are restricted on when is best to fish for these fish. It's not a situation where you can fish all tides anytime. Unfortunately, with the rain we've had, the run-out tide is going to bring particularly dirty water into the bay. Not to mention the strong current. The current's going to be really strong. With the normal amount of current from a run-out tide, you're also adding on the runoff, which is coming out of the rivers. That's going to add an extra couple of knots of run to the tide, at least. So that's going to make fishing run-out tide quite challenging. So I'll be focusing my efforts around the run-in tide, and particularly the top of the run-in tide, and the bigger run-in tides, because that's going to bring the most amount of clean ocean salty water into the bay, and that's when the fish are most likely to be feeding. But if you are restricted in when you can fish, and it so happens it only lines up with run-out tide time, I'd definitely be focusing around the start of the run-out tide, and I'd be focusing around areas that kind of feed into the ocean. So the likes of, if you're down south, Jumping Pin, the mouth around the bar there, but then up in the bay, around the South Passage Bar, around Amity Point, Rainbow Channel, Rouse Channel, those areas will be your best bet on the start of that run-out tide. Just so, because it will take a bit longer for that dirty water to push all the way out there on the run-out tide. So you'll still get a bit of clean water, and you'll get a short opportunity to fish those areas, if you're restricted for when you can go. But I'll certainly be focusing my time around that run-in tide, and the bigger the better, pushing more clean salt water in. So now that we know when we can target these fish, it's about where you go. Those fish are going to be concentrated in certain areas, and in other areas there's going to be no fish there. They will definitely be concentrated into certain areas, and they'll be biting in those certain areas. So I'll focus, obviously having a sounder helps, but if you don't have a sounder and you can't find those fish that way, then I'd definitely just be driving around looking for that cleaner, salty ocean water. And once you've found that, focus your time around that area, work that area, and you should be able to get some bites from them for your fish. So I'll be focusing my time around my efforts around the Northern Bay, because the dirty runoff water from the Brisbane River doesn't seem to quite get right out there. So there'll definitely be cleaner water, clean salty water available out in the Northern Bay. But as well as that, I'll be putting some time into fishing the Southern Bay in deeper areas that are greater than 10 metres. The reason why I'll be focusing on greater than 10 metres is because the salt water is actually denser than the fresh water. So in those holes of greater than 10 metres, those channels and stuff, there's often a layer of salt water on the bottom level of the water column. That bottom sort of 2 to 3 metres can often have salt water when the fresh water is sitting above in that higher part of the water column, because it's not as dense as the salt water floating on top. And with those situations, often you'll find that there's fair few fish stacked up on the bottom, and they're actually actively feeding really strong, because that top layer of dirty fresh water actually provides a bit of cover for them to feed under, similar to night fishing when they feed under the cover of darkness. During the day they'll feed under the cover of that dirty water, and they'll be quite happy smashing bait all day long, smashing bait and actively feeding on lures and stuff like that during that time. So I'll definitely be putting a bit of effort into finding those areas where the salt water's sitting below the fresh water, because the fish, you can get some very red hot sessions fishing those areas, catching many fish in a short amount of time, because they're really honed into actively feeding at that time. So that's that. Moving on from the where, how do you go about actually targeting these fish like during this time? What can you do to swing the odds in your favour, to give you a better chance, once you've found those fish, give you a better chance of getting a hookup? So the fish will often be, fish feeding around dirty, discoloured water will often be relying on two senses. They'll be relying on the sense of smell to find their prey, and they'll be relying on their lateral line to feel vibrations in the water to also hunt their prey. So that tells us that we need to be using something that either smells, or it gives off vibrations, or it does both. If it does both, great, you've got yourself a winning recipe there. If it does one, it's often enough for that fish to find your lure or bait. So obviously live baits are a standout performer during these dirty water conditions, because they give off a smell and they vibrate. That's even better. So for my live baits, I run a rig that's just a sinker above a swivel rig, and then it's a two hook snell rig, but it's a sliding snell. So I can slide this hook up and down that leader, that main 20-pound is this line, and I can change the hook, the gap between the two hooks, which just allows me to perfectly rig up my live bait or dead bait of different sizes. So every one I can perfectly rig up without having any bends in that line there. I can have it tight every time, which just results in a better hookup. When you do hook up, it gives you a better chance of hanging on to that fish. So that's live baits. But I really like to fish my lures. I love using lures. It's just a different challenge. So with lures, you got two kind of niche options. You want lures that vibrate. So you've got vibes, and then you've also got soft plastics for when you're casting lures for snapper. So I'll be using vibes a fair bit in that deeper water. Stuff like you got a Nomad Max vibe, Vertrex Max, something like that colour especially. It's like an orange and black colour. I'll take it out of this packet and show you guys. It's going to be really good during that time when the current's a bit stronger, because it gives out maximum vibrations, really helping the fish to hone in on that lure. And that colour is going to offer a really good contrast in the dirty water. Hopefully it focuses on that. That orange and black is going to be really good colour for that dirtier water. And then when that current's a bit slower around the top of the tide, you can afford to go to something that is a bit more like this lure here, which is this is also a Nomad Vertrex, but it's in the swim model. So it's a bit thicker through the body. And what that does is that just means it swims on the drop a bit better. So it'll swim on the drop and just add an extra level of enticement. And during that cleaner water, slow run, on the top of the high tide, this will be really good. It still offers that sort of vibration on the lift up, but it also swims on the drop. So that'll be quite good. Otherwise, you can look at stuff like the xeric fish traps, stuff like that as well is going to be very good. But yeah, ultimately just something that gives off good vibration, and the colour is a good contrasting colour for dirty water is going to be the key. So I'll just slide that back in. So moving on, next technique for casting a snapper and stuff will be soft plastics. The use of soft plastics will be very effective. I'll mainly be flicking paddle tails. Curly tails will work alright. Something with quite a thin curly tail that vibrates really hard, like the cast tackle Apex, something like that will work pretty well. But the paddle tails seem to give off more vibration, and they work slightly better in these dirty water conditions. So that's what I'm mainly using. And I find the cast tackle Prodigy in this colour, the gold and black, works really well in dirty water conditions. They come rigged with, hopefully you can hear that rattle. And that colour offers really good contrast in that dirty water. With the gold fleck running through it, it adds a bit of shine to it as well. And good sort of mullet, herring, prawn sort of pattern as well for that bait, to imitate that bait. So yeah, they're going to be really good lures during these dirty water conditions. Also casting, what else have you got here? Something like that, that's a Z-Man lure, stretchy, so obviously multiple fish on the same lure. Something with a bit of shine in it, that's a motor oil sort of colour with a bit of sparkle fleck in it. That's also going to help with you getting your bites. Or another one that's really good is the My Lure Box Jack Burner. It's a mangrove jack lure, but also works really well on snapper. Just got that rigged on a BKK jig head, so that's going to work pretty well rigged like that. This chartreuse sort of coloured tail is really good in that dirty water, and again, that black on the top and the sparkle is going to offer good contrast in the dirty water as well. Another thing you can do to improve your chances is you can run some scent on your lures during. That's obviously going to add some smell, which just helps you add another way that fish can hone in on your lure using the senses it would use in dirty water, which is smell and vibrations and whatnot. So that's covered soft plastics. The other way that I'll be trying is a bit different. It's trolling for snapper. Plenty of people do it. It can be particularly effective in dirty water because you're running hard bodies and you're trolling, and that's sending off lots of vibration as long as you get your lure down in the strike zone. And usually your troll bite would only occur pre-dawn, mostly, just because that's when the snappers seem to want to rise to the lure. But if you can get that lure down below that dirty water, below that freshwater layer, they'll be quite comfortable coming up and smacking that hard body lure. So that can be quite an effective method. So for trolling, I'm just running a couple of lures like this. This is actually a wooden lure, a special one that I got when I was living up North Queensland, barrel lure, but it works quite well on the snapper. Something like that. This one here, this is a xeric ripper diver. That gets you right down deep, 5 meters plus. So that'll get you down into that bottom part of the water column when it's trolled. So that can be quite a good lure. Otherwise, this is also a very good lure. Offers lots of vibration, heaps of vibration for this one. Flats rats, so that'll be very handy. Otherwise, even deeper, going 10 to 15 meters, these Nomad DTX diving lures can be very effective on the snapper as well. Getting real deep with that big bib. So that's my main techniques for chasing the snapper in the next couple of weeks. The other thing to note is that you can afford to go a bit heavier on your line. with the amount of rain and fresh water getting pushed into the bay, we'll probably get quite a boom in sharks. Like, sharks obviously a problem normally, but they'll probably be even more so a problem in the next couple of weeks. So going a bit heavier on your gear can allow you to just get them past the sharks, and you're less likely to get busted off on any structure that you're fishing as well. So instead of going 10 to 12 pound on your leader and 8 to 10 pound on your braid, I'll be running 10 to 15 pound braid and then 15 to 30 pound leader. So running leader like this, like these 15, 30 pound cast tackle fluorocarbon will be what I'll be running, and then probably running this sort of reel here, 2,500 with just 15 pound Daiwa Expedition braid that is there. So just running outfit like that will just increase your chances of landing those bigger fish in this dirty water with heaps of sharks and structure around. Alright, fortunately that's all we got for you guys at the moment. Hopefully I'll see you in next episode with a bit of fishing action from the next week or two. Alright, have a good one guys, stay safe, catches.